Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Tim DiFrancesco, PT, DPT, ATC, CSCS, spent 6 seasons as the head strength and conditioning coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and is founder of TD Athletes Edge, which we'll talk to him about. He is nationally renowned for his evidence-based and scientific approach to fitness training, nutrition, and recovery for athletes and fitness enthusiasts. Tim, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
First of all, can you tell us about all those acronyms that I just spurted out? I know it would have taken me about 3 hours to introduce you if I had have said the real words. So can you tell us about your experience, your certifications, and perhaps how you got into all of this?
You bet. So the alphabet after my name is just a nice list of letters that kind of show how many thousands of dollars of student loan debt I have to repay in from my travels this far. But yeah, so I mean, the quick recap of it is I went to undergrad for athletic training at Endicott College outside of Boston and became a certified licensed athletic trainer, quickly transitioned from there to get my doctorate in physical therapy, 3-year doctoral program at UMass Lowell. And then from there, went really head first into the performance and strength and conditioning side of things to use the perspective of those two backgrounds and put that into the strength and performance world to be able to work with people there. So that's kind of the quick stops along the way that I did from an education and academic standpoint. And that's really what those letters after my name stand for. But yeah.
So how the hell do you become an S&C coach for the LA Lakers?
I wonder that myself. But I usually tell people right place, right time, doing some of the right things. And a little bit more description on that. If I think about what that really means is I had a nice bit of credibility behind my name because of the academic background I had. I was always enjoyable to be around. Is something I really work very hard at doing all the time in any interaction that I have. And whether I was working with a PT patient that just had a total hip replacement and wants to be able to walk around their house, or whether I was working with a person by the name of Kobe Bryant, I treat every person the same as I work with them. So I think, that's kind of the less than quantitative version of how I got that job. Ultimately, what happened was as working initially out of school, working as a full-time physical therapist, I had an opportunity and a decision to make to potentially shift away from that position and go take a job with the Bakersfield Jam, which was a minor league basketball team in the NBA D League at the time. Now it's the G League. But took that job and had a chance to be in the team setting in the NBA minor leagues, and was quickly, without me really knowing it, on the radar of the LA Lakers staff as we became affiliated in Bakersfield at the time with the Lakers, and their athletic training staff, in particular Gary Vitti, who was 30-year legend in the field as an athletic trainer for over 30 years with the LA Lakers, had really been looking for somebody that was going to be able to own the weight room with a great background in understanding rehab and performance at the same time. So I happened to check some of the boxes he was looking for in a person there, and then one thing turned into the next, and I was the head strength coach for the Lakers. But there's a lot of steps and, as I call it, a lot of shit sandwiches that I ate along the way. So not to say that just kind of happened with a snap of the finger.
And can you, I guess it was 6 seasons, so it was a long time. Can you share with us your experience in terms of working with these guys? A lot of people just assume that if you're fit, you're healthy. What was your experience with the fitness and health of the athletes?
I think it is deceiving, and I think that the pro athlete, it's assumed that they don't get there unless they're fit and very healthy generally and strong and powerful and all of the boxes that you would think of when you describe a person that gets paid to demonstrate their athletic performance. So it's deceiving, and it's not always the case. And a lot of times there are players that make it to the highest end of the ranks in pro sports that got there despite some limitations in their strength and performance and overall health and wellness. And they're so darn talented and athletically gifted that they could overshadow some of those bigger, more underlying health and strength and overall athletic limitations that they might have that you just don't assume is the case with some of these athletes. So to be more specific there, I in my position, I worked with a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-olds who basically went and played basketball for high school and went to 1 year of college and played basketball and then showed up to Los Angeles to wear an LA Lakers jersey to play basketball and didn't do a lot of the things that we would consider as well-rounded health and nutrition and fitness and wellness requisites that we all at least recognize. Whether we all take them seriously is another story, but you assume that there's only one way to get to the pros and to wear a Lakers jersey is to make sure you're checking all those boxes all the time and be a great basketball player. And some of them can get away with it without doing that. And so, as I always say, you can cheat the system for a while when you have really special genes, but eventually it'll catch up to you. And so some of those 19, 20, 21-year-olds really just weren't as strong in the weight room or did not have as effective or efficient of a core or foundational muscle support muscle series of group of muscles and in different body areas. And yet they could put on a ESPN highlight reel whenever you wanted if you put them on a basketball court. It's just a matter of how long can they last doing that without these foundational pieces that they may lack. And nobody really took the time to coach them on it and to make them step back a little bit. I think a lot of people in this field as strength coaches and rehab specialists, they think, oh, well, this person's a pro athlete, so we can skip a few steps and get right to the good stuff. And it's probably a mistake.
And did you see any evidence of that over time where this 19, 20, 21-year-old lasted for a while but sort of faded out after time?
Yeah. I mean, there's any number of kids that come into the league that begin to fizzle by the time they're 25. And I think there's a couple versions of athletes that, at least NBA level athletes, that would come in, which is some of them come in really understanding that, okay, I've got to really ramp my approach up a little bit. This is the big show. And some of them come in without an understanding of that, but then realize it within a year or two. And some of them get to be the 25 and they've skirted their way along with their good genes and their athleticism that they were, some of which born with. And then all of a sudden it kind of crashes into they never reach their potential or they never get a chance to go further toward their potential because they just kind of run out of the ability to endure the schedule and the requisites of being a pro basketball player. So, yeah, I mean, I certainly saw my share of players that had a hard time recognizing that and taking that seriously, and some of which are not in the league anymore.
And so as an S&C coach, did you have a bit of an authority in terms of, look, you either do it my way or don't bother turning up?
No, not really. In the NBA, there's guaranteed contracts, and there's players that have. When I took the Lakers job, I was working with guys like Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash and Pau Gasol and that ilk of player. And there's a couple of championships and a couple of MVPs amongst just the three people that I listed there. And so a lot of it comes down to how well can you develop their respect and their trust to be able to have a dialogue with them about here's how we can approach this to maybe do things a little better, or here's what I like about what you're doing and let's keep doing that but more, and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you're going to take a strength coach position in the NBA, you're not taking a position where you're holding a ton of authority over what guys do or don't do. The people that stick around in those positions are the ones that quickly understand that and then quickly and have a natural ability to develop a relationship with the player one at a time. So if you can do that, you can stick around. It's a players' league and they dictate a lot of what happens. And if they like you, if they trust you, if they respect you, then that word gets to the people that pay your paychecks just as fast as if they don't like you, they don't trust you, they don't respect you.
So, Tim, it seems like it comes down a lot gaining their respect and building that relationship. And I know when people talk about you, they mention that a lot, that unique ability to be able to do that. What are your secrets?
Listening. I try to hear people and not just let them talk until it's my turn to talk again. I try to understand the different approach or type of people's personality and be a chameleon myself, as I can interact just as easily with somebody that's very outgoing as somebody that's a little more reserved, and find what's important to people and show that you value the things that they value, learn how to speak their individual language. The thing I brought up earlier, just essentially be enjoyable to be around. And that doesn't mean you have to be everybody's buddy and friend and just nice and happy all the time. But there's I think a basic human behavior that is either in any instance, in any interaction, enjoyable to be a part of or not. And don't get me wrong, I have my moments. You can probably ask my wife and she'll tell you I'm not always enjoyable to be around. But the bottom line being, I think it's something that we lose track of in all of our daily interactions. We get an agenda and we say, okay, in this interaction, I have to accomplish this. And meanwhile, you're so focused on that agenda that you forgot that there's another person on the other side of this interaction, and your focus on that agenda compromised the ability to be enjoyable to be around. And I think paying just paying respect to people the way that I would want to have respect, but also not having major expectations for people that I interact with. And that sounds odd, that it shouldn't sound more like I have great expectations for everybody that I interact with, but I have expectations for myself, and that's really what I can control. I can't control what other people that I interact with do or say or how they say it and that kind of thing. So I've become better at not taking things personally or being let down when things don't go as I thought they would. And so I think that's sort of a bit of how I approach interactions and how I think about developing relationships with people.
You mentioned, though, that you don't necessarily expect an outcome, but surely as an SNC coach at that high level, you need to produce or you're out.
Yeah. I think that's to some extent the case. I think what is it though, that the outcome is that you're looking for, that the player's looking for, that your boss or superior is looking for, is, to me, it comes down to, are you putting the player in the position to do what they are paid to do, which is play basketball for the longest period of time and have the most availability to do that as possible. And so there's that level of expectation that I would have from my seat in that position that I think allowed me to not get lost in what it is exactly that we're doing here. Because if you're focused on saying, well, I need to do everything I can, get this guy's body fat down to this number, or this guy's vertical leap number up to this number, there's a good chance that to do that, you may be compromising a path that would be the best path to get them to be available to play basketball as often and for as long as possible. And so when you're doing that, you may not get as much notoriety as somebody that is, there's an article that comes out every year about somebody in pro sports who is helping a team full of players lose a bunch of body fat. And there's an article that comes out all the time about, over the summer, this person was able to gain 5 inches of vertical leap or speed to their straight ahead run. And then those people don't always translate to being available as often as possible for as long as possible on the court. And so to me, when that gets lost in the shuffle, then eyebrows get raised and people start saying, well, why aren't these people ready to do their sport, let alone, versus being overly focused on how come this person didn't lose another % body fat. So that is really how I approached that. And it took me a little bit to kind of catch up to speed on that being the big agenda, the important agenda. But that's where I found success, is staying focused on that agenda.
That's interesting. Tim, would you be able to share with us maybe a huge challenge that you had that you potentially overcame, or maybe you didn't overcome, but you had a journey in terms of working on an athlete? Of course, you don't have to mention their particular name, but on something you were working, say it could have been a fat loss goal, or it could have been a jump goal, whatever it may have been, and how you approached it and what came about?
Yeah, I think if I think about some of that, I think that, there's more in general, rather than a specific instance that I could talk on. One of the initiatives that I took on my shoulders when I took the Lakers job was to, in addition to being the head strength coach, was to really dig down into the nutrition habits of the players and kind of be able to support healthy nutrition choices for the players, whether we be at home or on the road, and help any chefs that we work with to understand what our goals are with individual players and that kind of thing. So that was quite a journey. That was quite a path. That was quite a task that I came in guns blazing, thinking I was going to revolutionize how NBA players approach nutrition, which is not always great. I walked into locker rooms when I first took the job where you had players ordering chicken fingers and French fries an hour before the game, and, really trying to then just step back and figure out, okay, this is where the starting point is. It's a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. And how can we adjust this? And I think that what I learned as I approached that was that there's not a one-size-fits-all nutrition approach, and that each person has a level of willingness that they're willing and able to dip their feet into the pool of how to make some positive changes in their nutrition and food choices. For some people, just simply, swapping out. There was a veteran player that we had that I'm happy to bring a name into the discussion, Antoine Jameson, who was at the tail end of his career with us. And he had a habit for his entire NBA career of having a Snickers bar at halftime every game. So just trying to work with him to say, well, let's think about why you do that and how we could do that maybe better at this stage in your career. Do you really want to do that? And if you are willing and want to make a positive change there, then let's look at some options. So having a chocolate hazelnut butter, low sugar chocolate hazelnut butter packet ready for him that he could kind of get at halftime was something he was willing to try, and tried and felt like it was a positive response with how he did that. And making that change was good for him. And that was really, he also started to swap some sodas for some kombucha tea drinks and things like that. So making some changes like that for that person was really big. And then you have a guy like Steve Nash who wanted to get into the nitty gritty, and Chris Kamen is a guy that I work with and still work with a lot from a training and nutrition standpoint, that those guys really wanted to peel back some layers and say, well, where should I get if I'm going to eat healthy beef or healthy chicken, where should I get that from? What's the best source? How many carbohydrates should I think about eating per day, and when and why and where should I get those from, and that kind of stuff. So for me, understanding that I wasn't going to change all 15 guys to the nth degree was a learning process. And sometimes it went well in that process and sometimes not so well. But, I think if I were to sort of go back to that project and start it again, I would go back with an approach of saying, okay, there's going to be probably 30% of the locker room that's going to go all in. There's probably going to be another 30% that just do some basic things. Maybe another 30% that do a little bit, tiny little things, switch a chocolate hazelnut butter packet for a Snickers bar and leave it at that. And then there's going to be 10% that do not care at all to make any changes and don't even want to hear about it. And so again, I think just going in with the right expectations and knowing what is appropriate and what's realistic for the audience would have been easier on me, rather than going through a couple periods of frustration and why I couldn't change all 15 to the nth degree.
But it sounds like you quickly learnt that an individual approach was the way to go.
Yeah, 100%.
That's awesome. And so now, with all your, I guess, experience in evidence-based scientific approach to all of these areas such as fitness and training, nutrition, recovery, You're now using that, I believe, at your new venture, which is TD Athletes Edge. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So TD Athletes Edge has taken many versions over the years, and it's actually been around for over 12 years in some capacity, initially as a small scale performance training, semi-private performance training space and facility outside of Boston, and then kind of took pause while I took the Lakers job, and then we're back outside of Boston in a really great space here, about 5,000 to 7,000 square feet, and we just try to, the in-person training aspect of TD Athletes Edge today is a location where people can come no matter what their performance goals are and what their performance history has been, and kind of get a chance to go through our assessment process and put together a roadmap of where they've been and where they want to go and what it looks like to get there, from looking at how they move and how they feel and how they want to move and how they want to feel and what they want to do, and then finding a responsible way to add really, really targeted resistance training and performance training and fitness into your routine to do what it is that you want to do. So ultimately, from the in-person standpoint, that's what we're trying to do. We're working on some online training services to reach broader audiences with that approach and outside of the Boston area, and do that. And generally on our developing content and product and services across the board to be able to bring value to the overall space of that gets a little bit wacky sometimes within nutrition and fitness and training and strength and conditioning, and kind of bring a little bit of a voice of reason and help people get results to play the long game. And I think that that's really our approach is to be able to help people understand that every exercise does not have to be what we call a banger, and nor does every workout have to be a banger to be productive. And there's got to be some thought into when and where you have those types of aggressive or intense moments in your workout approaches. And there's got to be some times when you don't have such intense moments, and helping people solve that puzzle.
That's great. And Tim, I'll be looking out for your online services. How long away do you think they might be?
Yeah, so, we are offering online training now, and we're really excited about it. Is just kind of launching in the last couple of months our online training services and developing a ongoing and growing library of videos on our YouTube channel to be able to support, and working with a platform. Basically, slowly but surely, we're going to be using a platform here to switch over to. Right now, we do have a number of online training clients that slowly but surely will switch over to a new platform from which we interact with, that I think will give us a little more dynamic abilities to interact. But right now, we're getting some really good feedback on what we're doing with our online training clients in the format that we're doing that now.
That's awesome. I'll definitely link to all of that in the show notes, Tim. And I know you're very time poor today. And I did have to ask you one question, though, before you go. Do you have a tattoo?
No, I don't.
Have you considered an LA Lakers?
No, I don't think that's going to go over well given my New England and Boston roots and where we currently reside outside of Boston. I don't think that would go over very well. But I always did have a thought in my head of, if I did get a tattoo as a kid, I was going to get Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes spinning a basketball. So I don't know why or where that kind of came into a vision of, if I did get a tattoo, that would be it. But never did get as far as putting anything on the body.
Excellent. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Awesome. Look, thank you very much for your time, and we're very fortunate to have you on the show, and look forward to getting our listeners' feedback from you.
Much appreciated, and we love to interact with people through our social media platforms. Our website is www.tdathletesedge.com. We're very active on Instagram and Twitter in particular, also Facebook. We are at TD Athletes Edge on both Twitter and Instagram, and please DM or reach out, interact on those platforms, because we really enjoy the interactions.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ali. It was great.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and subscribe.